In this segment of our video, we're going to demonstrate how to repair an SMC product. Now, SMC is what's been primarily used on Corvettes since definitely 1984, and it's been our own experience that probably back as far as 1980, General Motors was using SMC panels on new Corvettes. Now, SMC does contain fiberglass, although it is a different type, whereas the fiberglass is sandwiched in between two outer layers. The fiberglass is there primarily for the strength. However, the SMC cannot be repaired by using the old polyester-based resin and polyester-based bonding adhesive and body filler products. You have to go to an epoxy-based repair material such as the Fusor product, which General Motors is now using and recommending for aftermarket repair. Now, here again, the principles of repair are going to be almost exactly the same. We're just using a few different methods and naturally the new product. It does not make any difference how far down into the new SMC panel that you grind. It just will not adhere. And if you do use the old polyester-based resin or the old polyester-based body filler or bonding adhesive, you will find out after a certain period of time you'll probably start to get a crack around the edge of your repair. And actually you could take a pocket knife or putty knife, slip underneath the edge of that crack, and just literally peel off the whole repair that you've made. So it's very important to understand that you do have to use a new type of repair material. Now, here in front of me we have a door off of a later model Corvette. I don't exactly know what year, somewhere suffice to say an 84 through a 90, which is definitely SMC material. Now, we've got a break back here in the edge of the door where something has punctured the door. We actually have a puncture clean through the fiberglass, or the SMC to be more correct. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to show you how to repair a break such as this. To save time in the video, we've actually went ahead and proceeded with a couple steps just in the essence of saving time, where we've went ahead and done certain other steps here on this door. However, we will take you through each and every one of them. Now, here again, we're going to assume that, that this door was on a Corvette and probably a car backed into it in the parking lot. Possibly anything could have happened to the side where something ran into it and punctured it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to rough up the back side of this repair. We're going to take another piece of SMC, rough it up, mix up some of our repair material. We're going to put a patch on the back side of this, and that will give us the strength that we need. After the SMC goes off, we'll go ahead and grind down the epoxy that's squirted on through, and in the end we'll go ahead and grind the repaired area on down smooth and show you how to finish it on off. But let's get started here. Whenever you have a puncture completely through a fiberglass panel, you're going to have a lot of mismatched fibers that will not let the panel go back nice and flat. For that reason, you need to take a saber saw, a hacksaw blade, whatever, and you need to trace out all the little fracture lines in your repair. I'll go get a saber saw and we'll demonstrate how we're gonna go through this area here. Now, we just have your common ordinary saber saw here. Brand is not important. This is just a variable speed. We've got a hole big enough in here that we can insert our saw, and we're just going to go ahead and saw out the different fracture lines. as you noticed when we was cutting out, we ran into the understructure or the support where the door skin is glued to the back side. That necessitated in tipping the saber saw at an angle to go ahead because we could not get all the way through in the normal flat position. So sometimes when you do get into certain areas, you do need to check out to see whether you can saw all the way through, whether you merely have to tip the gun just to cut through the outer skin. We'll put the gun aside, or the saber saw aside. Just blow this off. Now we've traced out all of the fracture lines that we had in this puncture. Now we've taken away all of the errant strands in the fiberglass, and both sides of this break is laying nice and even with the contrasting side here. Now what we're going to do, normally if this was a fiberglass door, we would grind this area down and we would glass up the outside. SMC is different. SMC wants to have another piece glued on the back side. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come over here. We've already got another piece of SMC cut up. We're going to grind the paint off of this other piece of SMC. We're going to mix up some of our Fusor epoxy repair material. We'll spread it over top of this. We'll rough up the back side of this repair inside the door, and then we'll merely glue this piece up underneath. And that will give us all the strength we need to effect a good repair from the back side. Here again, had we been using regular fiberglass, instead of gluing another piece in, we'd have merely mixed up some resin, used some fiberglass mat, and wet it out on the back side. A little bit different procedure here. Right now, we'll get busy and turn the door over so we can rough up the back side here. Then we'll grind this down so we can glue this in. Okay, we've turned the door over now to give you a better idea of how we're going to repair this on the inside, how we're going to put our backing plate in there. Now this door has been specially cut away just for demonstration purposes to give you an idea of how to do this so you can see it better. Now what we're going to do is take the air grinder, we're going to rough up this surface down in here in back of our fracture, and we're going to use the grinder because we've got some edges here that we need to smooth down so that the patch will lay nice and flat. Instructions on the Fusor can tell you that all you need to do is rough it up with 80 grit paper to achieve adhesion. Now we could do that if we had a nice clean fracture. However, because we've got these rough edges, we're going to use the air grinder and we're going to knock this down so it's all nice and smooth. We'll get our air grinder now and we'll grind this area out in here till we get it nice and smooth. As before, I'm going to put my sleeves on so I don't get this fiberglass dust all over me, because this will get on you. It will cause you to itch just like the other type of fiberglass will. Okay, here we go. Okay, we've ground this area down on the back side of our fracture, and we've got this all smoothed out. Now what we're going to do is take our backup patch, we're going to grind the paint off our backup patch, we'll mix up our Fusor and apply it to the surface of the patch, and then we'll lay this over top of it. So okay, we're going to get our backer patch here. We'll get the grinder. We've got to take the paint off of here. We've got to have a surface that's roughed up so we get good adhesion. Now we're going to take the saw and we're going to round some of these edges off of this backer patch so it'll better fit down in here. We've got this steel brace going through here to contend with, so we want to make sure we get a good coverage of our fractured area. Okay, we've got this cut down to where we can lay this right over top of the fracture. It's going to lay down nice and flush. It's going to conform to the back side. Now we'll get busy and mix up our repair material so we can put it on here and just glue this patch right over top of the fracture. You're going to stir this up just like you was stirring up body filler or bonding adhesive. Now you've got a longer working time with the epoxies than you do with the body filler or the bonding adhesives. That's not to say that you can dilly-dally around, but you do have a longer working time. Now we feel that we've got this adequately mixed up. We're going to take our patch, spread this stuff out liberally. Now we've got it completely covered. What we're going to do is just take this and put it over top of the fractured area, press it down, move it around just a little bit, make sure we get it all pressed down good and tight. We squish out some of the fusor, making sure we've got a good bond. Okay, now we've properly put in the backer to our fracture. Now we'll get busy and clean off the mixing plate and the putty knife so that this stuff doesn't harden up. This is really hard to get off. This is worse than the body filler or the bonding adhesive, so you definitely want to clean this up before you move on to the next area. Okay, now that we've got our backer patch on our fractured area, you can see over here how when we pushed it in and slid it around, we squished out a lot of the fusor repair material out of the fractured lines of the repaired area. Now we're going to move on to the center where this is already kicked off. This is hard, and here again to save time, we're going to go ahead and grind this area down and get ready to do our cosmetic outside repair. You are aware of the fact, or need to be aware of the fact, that the epoxies do take a longer time to kick off. In other words, set up and get hard to work out. This repair that we just made on this patch will probably take a minimum of 4 hours, or preferably overnight, to completely cure before you're ready to knock it down and work out the top area. You can speed the process up if you want to purchase an infrared heat lamp, which in approximately 15 minutes to a half hour you can work it out. Okay, now we'll get busy and get the grinder. We'll grind this down here and get ready to make our outside cosmetic repair. What we're going to do, we're going to go from side to side, back and forth, knocking this down, and what we really want to do, we want to end up grinding down the fractures all the way down to the header underneath. Now we've got this area all ground down. Right where the fracture lines were, we've ground it down very thin. And we'll now mix up our Fusor again. We'll spread it over top of this whole area, and then we'll let the Fusor go ahead and kick off, and then we'll work off the top of it and smooth it on out. Okay, as you can see, we've already spread our Fusor out over our repaired area. The Fusor's kicked off, it's good and hard. Now we're going to take our air grinder because it will cut more material faster, and we do have a buildup here, like you should have, and we're going to take our air grinder and go back and forth from side to side, trying to make sure we level this out. That's the idea of going from side to side with the grinder to get a nice level area from one side to the other. The air grinder, we've got a fresh 24 grit disc on, so we're going to cut. Now here again, remember like in before, we only want to use enough pressure to keep the wheel spinning to cut off a small amount of material with each pass. After we get done with the air grinder, we'll go to the long john with 80 grit paper. We'll finish up with 180 on a DA. Now this is going to be messy. Here again, we want a fan preferably to blow this away, or we want to have it in a ventilated area so that it just doesn't build up in a big cloud. Okay, we've got this pretty well cut down with our 24 grit air grinder. We've uncovered glass on both sides of the repair. We really don't want to go any further with the air grinder for fear we'll take off too much and have to add some more. So now we're going to come in with our long john, air-powered long john, regular paper that you can buy at the store. Now this is 80 grit. So this is considerably finer than the 24 grit we had on the air grinder itself. Here again, we're moving up. We're slowly but surely getting to the final process before we want a primer. And naturally, the air long john only moves back and forth in a straight line. It does not orbit, and therefore we're going to get a real good flat surface. And we're going to keep the air sander moving all the time, and we're going to go in different directions. Here again, in an effort to make sure we don't valley out, don't get too low, we get a nice, smooth, even surface. Okay, as you can see, we've now got this whole area worked out with the long john with 80 grit paper. We do have some pinholes in this that we will take care of a little bit later, but right now we're going to get busy with the orbitable sander with a 180 grit disc on it, and we're going to smooth out our 80 grit scratches, and we're going to feather out the surrounding area working towards our primer. Now, just like all air tools, you want to keep the DA or the orbitable sander moving at all times, because otherwise it will tend to dig and valley out. So here again, we're going to use it like we use the grinder. We're going to use it like we use the long john. And all this is going to do is make finer scratches in this. But we don't want to primer over top of something as coarse as 80. We can primer over top of 180. Okay. As you can see, we've now got this all feathered out, nice and smooth on the outer edges, and all that remains is just the epoxy that we originally put on in the low areas. Now we're going to take the air blower, we're going to blow this off a little bit so you can see it a little bit more clearly. Okay, for all practical purposes, we have completed the structural repair of the fracture we started out with. From here on out, we would be primarily doing nothing more than primering and filling in some of the pinholes that was in the epoxy when we laid it down. Now, the proper procedure from here on out would be to first hit this with a catalyzed primer such as PPG's K200, which is a high solids filling primer with approximately 4 coats. After that has kicked off, then you would come in with a glazing putty, really not the stuff in the tube anymore. The stuff in the tube has been surpassed by glazing putty. Glazing putty we'll cover in another segment of the video. It is a very, very fine body filler-like substance. It uses a catalyst with it. It's just that it's of much finer texture. And it is more compatible with the work we're doing on the SMC panels. So here again, from here on out, we would primer over top of our 180 DA sanded down area with the catalyzed primer. After the catalyzed primer kicks off, we would mix up some glazing putty to fill up our pinholes. We would sand the glazing putty down, probably with a block and 240 grit paper. We would then be ready for sealer, then we would be ready for paint. A very common breakage on a lot of Corvettes are cracks in the wheel well. Now we've already made some cracks here to repair, and what we're going to do, first of all, we're going to take the saber saw and we're going to run the saber saw right up this crack, and you can see how these two pieces are torn apart. They don't lay nice and flat. When we run the saber saw up here, we'll get rid of all those errant fiberglass strands so that these two pieces will lay nice and flat. We'll then turn the fender over, we'll rough up the back side of this area, mix up some resin, tear off some mat, back this area up, then we'll turn the fender back over, grind down this damaged area here, fill this up with fiberglass, grind it down, finish it off with body filler. And that's what we're about to do on this fiberglass panel. Okay, we just have a regular saber saw here. It's a variable speed. There's nothing trick about it. You can pick one up at any hardware store. And we're just going to follow this crack right on up. Okay, you can see now that these two pieces are going to lay a lot better together than they were before. And that's the sole reason for using the saber saw or a hacksaw blade, whichever happens to be convenient or whichever you have, to make this cut up here. And cut the full length of the fracture. Now we'll turn this over, we'll rough up the back side of the fender in preparation for reinforcement in this area. We're going to use the air grinder with just the small disc on it to get in here. We don't need the great big disc in here, so we're just going to use the small one, and we're just going to rough this up. Okay, as you can see, we've got a nice roughed up area here with which to place fiberglass mat over top of. We'll get a piece of masking tape and put it on the outside of the fender so the resin doesn't run through the crack and drip all down the side of the car. It's not really necessary, it's just a good idea to do to prevent resin from running down the side of your car and causing an unnecessary area with which you'll have to come back and paint. We've got a nice wide roll of tape here. We'll just tear off about 4 inches. We'll put this on the back side, roll it over the lip there. Okay, now the resin won't run through our saw crack here. It can only go down to the tape, so it just makes a neater job for us. Now we'll get busy, pour the resin into our tub, put the catalyst in it, stir it up, and get busy and make our mat here on the back. Now we don't need a very large amount of resin at all, so we're only going to pour a small amount in the tub. The catalyst is graduated on the tube to tell us at least in quarters how much to use with the amount of resin. We've only got a very small amount here, so we're just going to guesstimate. We're just going to put a couple squirts of catalyst in our resin. That should do it. We'll take our stir stick. We'll stir this up. Make sure that we get it stirred up good. You want to make sure the catalyst permeates the resin entirely. Okay, we're going to take our brush. We're going to take a couple pieces of mat. The brush, by the way, is the cheapest thing you can buy at the hardware store. This thing only costs cents. Don't buy a good nylon brush because the resin will probably attack the bristles and it really won't work very well. You want just the cheapest brush you can use. This is only a 1-inch wide brush. It works real good. We don't have big repairs here. You don't want a big 2-inch or 3-inch wide brush. 3/4 or 1-inch brush is all you really need. It works real good, easy to handle. Now we've already torn off some mat. We put this up here. This is a little bit too big, so we're just going to tear this in half. We're going to get some pieces here that more closely coincide with the area we've got. And we're going to put 3 pieces of 1.5 ounce mat on the back of this fender. Now, 1.5 ounces is basically an industry standard. You don't need any thicker. You can use thinner and use more layers if you want. However, 2 to 3 layers on the back side is all you really need. Now, we're going to take our brush. We're going to wet it out a little bit. We're going to brush some resin over this area. And we're doing this so that the first layer of mat we put on there will stick. Put the mat on there, and the resin that we've got on there holds the mat in place while we go ahead and wet it on out. And we just put some more resin on the brush, and we're just, as you can notice, we're just dabbing it. You're not like you're painting. What you're wanting to do here is saturate the mat with the resin. You want to make sure that you get the mat all completely saturated out where it's laying on the flat surface. And you can tell when it's saturated because it basically becomes opaque and you can see through it. After you have the first layer all completely saturated, then we'll put a second layer on. And we'll do the same thing all over again. and we'll finish up with one last layer. Now we have this damaged area completely covered with fiberglass on the back side. We've got the fiberglass mat saturated with resin. It's very easy to put way too much resin in the fiberglass mat than is needed. It will hold varying amounts of resin. We only really want enough resin in the mat to saturate it and to give it, to wet it on out. If you get too much resin in it, the whole area becomes more brittle than needs be. The resin is not the strength. The fiberglass mat is where you get your strength from. So, you know, you can always go back, dab out excess resin, scrape it out on the side of your tub, go back, dab it up again. Just be gentle. There's no real trick to this. And this will actually soak resin back out of your mat. And what you're after here, you're after a look of just the fiberglass strands. It almost has a dry appearance to it. Okay, we've got this all saturated out. We don't have any more resin than need be in it. And now we're just going to let this kick off and get hard. We'll turn the fender over, and then we'll grind this area out and finish up our repair on the top side. Okay, you can see that the resin's all kicked off now. It's nice and dry to the touch and everything. We've completed our structural reinforcement on the back side. What we're going to do now is get the grinder. We're going to knock off this fuzzy edge up here. All these little strands that got saturated with fiberglass are just like pins and needles. They can really stick you, and just like a needle will. And what's worse, they can get underneath your fingernails sometimes, and that really gives you a jolt. So we're going to take the grinder, and we're just going to knock this edge off right now, and then we'll turn the fender over to complete our repair on the top side. Okay, we're just going to take this nice and easy so we don't dig into the lip too much. Okay. We didn't do too much grinding. I didn't get too full of fiberglass on that little attempt right there. We'll turn the fender over. And we'll pull the tape off. And you can see that the tape prevented us from getting any resin runs all over the outside, which is what it was intended to do. Now we'll take the grinder and we'll grind out this crack all the way down to our new fiberglass that we put on the back side. We want to make sure we grind this crack all the way down so we do away with the cut edge, that 90-degree edge that the saber saw made, because that's normally what you see on a repair that was not done properly or not ground down all the way. If you grind that edge all the way off to your new fiberglass, you do away with the cut edge, you should be able to make a repair that shows no evidence of a repair where we had a fracture. We'll hook our trusty air grinder up again and get busy and grind this down. Okay, now you can see that we've went all the way down through our original fender, down to our fiberglass repair on the back side. Now we'll get busy and do just what we did on the back side. We'll tear off some resin, or tear off some fiberglass mat, excuse me. We'll mix up some resin, and we're going to probably put about 4 layers of resin on the top because we want to build this whole area up to at least level or a little bit above the original level of the fender itself. Okay, we've got our fiberglass mat all in place here. We're going to come back and soak a little bit more of it out because this is really important on the top side that we don't get a real wet area. Because here again, the more resin you have in your repair, the more prone you are to having shrinkage. So the more resin you soak out, the more chance you're going to have of not having a shrinkage problem. Now we've pretty well got that saturated or soaked out. We'll set this aside. We'll come back with our trusty little roller here. Now you should always roll out fiberglass mat after you make a repair. This will do a couple things. This will compress the fiberglass down tighter with each other. It will also roll out any air pockets or any air bubbles you might have. So we're going to roll this out really well, and we see that this doesn't really want to lay over here, even though we made an effort to make sure that it would. So after we get done rolling this out, we'll set the roller aside. We're going to get ourselves some masking tape, and we're going to tear off a few strips here. And we're going to tape the fiberglass mat down to the rest of the wheel well lip here in an effort to hold our new mat in place. Now there's nothing wrong with this. And here again, it's just in an effort to hold the new mat up against the old fiberglass fender. If this doesn't work, then what we have to do, we have to come back in this flat area here after this is all kicked off and gotten hard, and we'll have to lay up a little bit of fiberglass mat right in this area to give us the adequate strength. If this tape will hold the fiberglass mat up against there and it sticks to it real good, well then we don't need to do that. Okay, we've now got our fiberglass mat all in place on the top side. Now we're going to wait until this kicks off and gets hard. When we come back, we'll take the grinder, we'll grind this off, and then we'll put a layer of body filler over top of it, and then we'll be ready to go into the primer. Okay, our fiberglass is all kicked off. This is hard, this is dry. We'll peel our tape off here. One thing I do want to mention, and it is important, make sure you clean out your brush and your roller, preferably in acetone. Lacquer thinner will work, however, acetone is better. You know, you're not losing a whole lot by letting the resin harden up in a 59-cent 1-inch paintbrush. However, a $5 to $10 roller can start to get into your pocket a little bit if you forget to do that, and they are difficult to clean out, all those little fins in there. So remember, have a little acetone, a little lacquer thinner handy, clean out your brush and roller. Okay, now we're going to get busy. Since this is all kicked off, we're going to grind this down level, maybe even a little bit lower in our repaired area. After we get it all ground down smooth, we'll come back. We'll put a little body filler over top of it so we can finish off this repair. Okay, we've ground this area all down now. We've got rid of our excess with our grinder and our 24 grit disc, which, as you notice, moves a lot of material fairly quickly. We were very careful trying to go back and forth across the fractured area to get it somewhat level. Now we'll get busy and get the long john, and we'll work this area out smoother. Remember, the long john has an 80 grit piece of paper on it. We'll work this whole area out a little bit finer, then we'll get busy and put our body filler on it. We've worked the area out now with the long john. We've pretty well smoothed this out. We'll blow this off a little bit. Want to make sure this is a clean area before you get busy and spread any filler on it. The dust would prevent the body filler from sticking adequately to the repair. Okay, we'll mix up a little body filler and spread on the area now. Here again, we're going to use a regular board made for this rather than a piece of cardboard. Now this body filler did not have any resin up on top of it. This is naturally Eckler's body filler. We move this stuff on a regular basis. You'll notice a lot of body fillers you buy from some of the stores out there, the automotive stores. You pop the lid, and you're going to have a lot of resin sitting on top of that filler. That means that that can has sat on the shelf for a long time, and it's basically separated out. If you do buy a can like that, and you do find that's what you've got, you should take a fairly stout stick, and you should stir that all up. You want to get that resin all back in suspension inside of the regular filler itself. Now here again, since we do move a lot of this, ours does not have a chance to sit and separate out. Ours was already all well mixed up. So we're gonna get out enough filler here to adequately cover that. We'll just cap up the filler. We'll get a little cream hardener here. We want to shake this up and squeeze this up as good as we can. Normally there's a little desaturation in this stuff where you get a little liquid out of the first time. And if at all possible, we want to make sure that that's all mixed up real good. We'll squeeze that around. Here again, on this, there are instructions on the can as to how much to use per amount of filler. It's just more than anything a guesstimate type situation. So we're just going to squeeze a little out here. What you also need to take into consideration is the temperature of the day and you know, your atmosphere that you're working in as to how much hardener to use. Now I feel that that's going to be an adequate amount. It's not going to kick off too quick. It'll give us a little working time. Now here again, we want to stir this up. Notice that this is a darkish orange in color with our light gray body filler. We want to get a good uniform color throughout. We don't want to see any bright red spots or light gray spots. Okay, I think we've got a pretty good mixture here. We'll scrape off our putty knife on the edge. A little catalyst left in that. Set that aside. We'll grab our spreader. We'll come over here. We don't want to take a great big amount. We want to just take a small amount, put it on there, and try to make nice even strokes. We don't want any really thick or thin areas here. We just want some nice uniformity in spreading this out. We're not worried about going out over onto the paint because we're going to come back and sand this on down, so we'll sand that off. Spread this on out nice and even, making sure we cover all of our repaired area here. Wheel well edge is a little bit difficult to do. A little practice helps out. Come back on the top side and roll that down. The idea here is the smoother you can make your spread, the easier it is to sand it down. Put a little bit on the bottom side down here, cover up that inside lip. One more time. Okay, we're going to let this go. We're going to let this kick off. Here again, we're going to clean up our mixing board. We're going to clean up the putty knife as well as the spreader while this is nice and soft and easy to clean up. Not after we set it down, go have a smoke or a beer or a pop. When we come back after doing that, this is going to be kicked off. It's going to be hard and difficult to take off, be time consuming. So we're going to go clean it up right now while it's nice and easy to do. Now that we have this pretty well shaped up with our long john, we're going to go ahead and finish this off by hand because we've got some curved areas in this. And if we go much further with our long john, we're liable to do more damage and we're going to have to come back and put more body filler over top of it again. So we're going to stop right here. We're going to work this on out by hand with regular hand tools. This is just nothing more than a cardboard tube with sandpaper wrapped around it. It's fairly firm, and as you can see, it's going to work real good shaping out this nice curved fender well lip for us right here, which is exactly what we're going to do with it. Here again, we're going to work on a bit of an angle, and we're going to move in various directions with it so we don't get low spots by only working one way. While we're working, we tend to roll the tube so that we keep a good fresh working surface so that it cuts real good as we're working. Okay, we're really pretty close on this. We're going to put the sanding tube up. We're going to come back and get a block now. First of all, we're just going to take the plain old rubber block. Everybody's used since Lord knows how long ago. But this time, instead of on the flat side, we've got our paper on the curved side. This is so we can finish off this inside lip. Okay, we've got that inside lip finished off pretty well. Now we'll come back with our stick-it block with 80 grit paper on it. We're going to just work out a little bit more detail with this. Okay, we've pretty well got this all finished off and all shaped up with our small 80 grit block. Now we're going to come over and we're going to get our air-powered orbital sander with 180 grit disc on it. We're going to feather this all out and get it ready for primer. Okay, notice that we've really got this all feathered out all the way around. We've managed to get rid of practically all of our deep scratches that we had in here. This area right now is really ready for primer. We've got a total absence of any pinholes in our body filler because we used nice fresh filler. It wasn't hard, it didn't have chunks in it. We were able to get a good smooth mix and it laid down really well for us. Right now, this area is ready to be hit with a catalyzed primer. I really doubt if there would be any need for any glazing putty on there. 2 or 3 coats of primer is all you would really need before you sanded the primer down and was ready for paint. In this section of our video, we are going to show you how to replace a complete quarter panel on this 77 Corvette. We're going to show you the proper way to remove the quarter panel along factory bonding seams. We're going to show you how to prepare the new panel, how to line it up on the car, and we're going to show you the proper adhesive to use in gluing the new panel onto the car. Now, as you can see, this panel is damaged beyond repair. Actually, it can be repaired, no doubt about that. However, it is going to be far easier and better if you just replace the whole quarter panel. And any panel replacement on a Corvette, whether it be an old one or one of the newer models, you can use the same techniques that we're using on this quarter panel to put on a new side fender, a new upper surround, a new tail light panel, or whatever panel you want to use. Just use the same techniques in those panels that we're going to use on this one right here. Now what we're going to do first, we're going to locate the bonding seam where this quarter panel is glued onto the bonding strip, and we'll do that by taking a grinder and just knocking the paint off the full length right here. Then we'll come in with a hammer and a chisel, we'll chisel off the old quarter panel, and then we'll get busy and we'll prepare the new panel and start to fit the new panel on the car. Right now, we'll get busy and get the grinder after we put our protective sleeves on to keep the fiberglass off. Now all we're going to do is take the grinder with a 24 grit disc on it, and we're just going to lightly skim over and remove the paint. We know from past experience that the bonding seam is going to run approximately 2.5 inches below the fender peak. All we want to do is verify exactly where that seam is so we can chisel the quarter panel off properly. Okay, as you can see, we've uncovered the seam, and this seam for some reason is quite a bit wider than what we normally find. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Here we have our bonding strip. Now your quarter panel was glued onto this bonding strip. It goes up underneath your upper surround panel up here, so all you have is an overlap. Now that we've uncovered this seam, we're going to take a hammer and a chisel, and we're going to go along and we're going to break this quarter panel away from the bonding strip. We want to save the bonding strip. We want to keep it intact to glue our new quarter panel on. So we'll get a hammer and a chisel now. And I prefer to put a leather glove on the hand that holds the chisel, seeing as that I miss from time to time, and after about the third wrap it gets a little tender. And a glove will certainly help prolong the pain. So we'll put our leather glove on here. This is just approximately a 1-inch wide masonry chisel. You want to make sure that it's sharp. It's going to work better. But this is totally just a beating instrument. All we're going to do is chisel this thing off. A fairly good-sized ball peen hammer, or other hammer that's got some weight behind it. A regular carpenter hammer does not have enough weight to it to adequately do what we want. Now what we're going to do, we're going to chisel down along the bottom edge of this seam here, all the way along the full length. Now I've normally found that it takes about 3 passes to the point where we can break this thing loose properly. This quarter panel being broken off like it is, we can possibly start to come in like this on both sides of this break, and maybe this one will come off a little bit easier for us. Now we know that this thing is glued the full length of the dog leg down here, and we know we have another glued area approximately back here. We also know that in back of the wheel we have a flange down here for the splash shield that we have to contend with also. So when we're chiseling along here, we'll meet some resistance when we get in this area, and we'll meet resistance just before we get up into here because of those glued areas. So bear with us here while we chisel this sucker off. Okay, there you see we're making our third pass, and we've broke this sucker loose. Come along here. Pry off some. Here's our first flanged area right here. We've got our door jamb up here. We want to be careful that we don't damage this area right here. We'll go ahead and chisel off all this dog leg down here. A little bit time consuming maybe, but here again, whenever I can, I prefer to chisel off rather than taking the air grinder, because the air grinder just makes a load of dust and you're working in a real fog and a cloud, which is not good. The more you can do with a hammer and chisel and break off pieces, the cleaner and easier the job's going to be for you. We know our bonding, or our quarter panel, is glued down on this flange right here, and it's only about 1/8 of an inch thick. So we're going to be real careful, and we're going to come in here, and we're going to try and split this off right down this door edge. We got lucky. We broke the whole thing off without having to do a whole lot of chiseling. Now what we have left here is nothing more than factory bonding adhesive. That's the darker brown colored stuff. What we have to do, we have to chisel or grind all of this stuff off until we get down to this area right here. Now we'll go ahead and remove the rest of this quarter panel, and then we'll come back and we'll start to grind and chisel this off. As you can see, we've ground off the original factory adhesive up here on the bonding strip with the upper surround and the quarter panel, and we've started to go on down the dog leg here. Now here again, we want to grind off all of this stuff, all the original factory adhesive, down to the factory bonding strips. Now, as you can see, we've switched instruments here with which to remove the quarter panel. The hammer and chisel works real well. It does take a little bit longer than if you have a zip gun with a nice flat chisel to take it off. Most people do not have a tool like this, so that's why we showed the hammer and chisel to begin with. If you do have an air-powered zip gun, you do use it in the same manner as the hammer and chisel. You do come down like so, work your way along the whole seam, and then after about the third pass, you'll find out you're loose enough you can peel this thing off. What I wanted to really show you was that we've uncovered the fact that this quarter panel has been damaged and repaired previously. And what we've got holes in the seam here, and we've got old rivets left in the repair. Now what's going to happen here, after a while, these rivets would show through your finished bodywork. Somebody has ground off the larger diameter head of the rivet, but they've left the nail in there. And over a period of time, and after a few miles of going down the road, what will happen is you'll have a little round hole, a little recess with a little crack around every rivet that was left in this quarter panel. And really, Corvettes were never put together with pop rivets and screws. The outer skin was only glued on the car. And that's all we're going to do, and that's all you should do, is glue this thing together. Okay, as you can see, we've now got the entire bonding strip, the rear splash shield, and the front dog leg has all been completely ground down. All the old factory bonding adhesive has been removed, and we're right down to the bonding strip surfaces themselves. We used a 24 grit disc. They're all good and rough. They're all good and clean. Now we'll get busy. We'll get our new quarter panel up here. We'll trial fit our quarter panel to this area here and see how it fits. Now this thing might not just slap on there and fit absolutely perfectly. In fact, most of them don't. Somewhere along the line, normally speaking, you've got to fudge or you've got to take a little bit off here and there to get the kind of fit you want. Here again, we've got the back of our bonding strip right here. The rear of our quarter panel is going to have to fit flush against this back edge here because the bumper fits flush with the upper surround and the rear of the quarter panel. And so first of all, we're going to make sure we fit flush here and pull it forward. And then we'll slide it up and down the bonding strip here to get the proper fit. Okay, we've got our quarter panel here. As you can see, we've already ground down all the bonding strip surfaces of where we're going to have glue or adhesive on this back side. We've done that in an effort to save time in this segment here. But these are all areas where we know that we're going to have adhesive on this car. Okay, we'll get busy and slap this thing up here. And like I say, we want to start at the back. We want to pull it up tight. And as we can see, we're going to have to take off probably about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch on this whole front edge before we get this thing to fit flush, because the quarter panel in this instance is a little bit too long for this particular car. So what we're going to do right now, we'll just get busy and take the grinder, we'll take a marker and we'll just scribe an edge along here, and we'll get busy and grind this off, because this has got to fit flush down there because we can't get the door open right now. So we'll pull this off and we'll grind this edge down a bit. Okay, we don't want to take off too much. Better to take off too little and have to come back and do it maybe 2 or 3 times rather than to take off too much. We'll just get busy and knock this down with our grinder. As you can see, we've got the quarter panel clamped on to the car in the proper fashion here. Now we've went ahead and taped the edge of the door so that when we bond this on and it squishes out, we're not going to disturb the paint on the door edge here, and we'll be able to open the door without a problem. And as you can see, we've ground it down and we've got our gap right here. We've come across, we're nice and flush. We're not going to have to do a lot of finish work right here. And we've got the clamps in specific areas. In placement of the clamps, the only thing you want to make sure that you do is on the back side, you want to make sure the pad grabs the back of the flange so you're actually pulling the fender in and clamping it in place. Now, there's no special place that you need to put these clamps other than the fact that you want to make sure that your new panel is flush onto the bonding strip, and that you're not going to have a big low place or a high place here between your upper surround and your new quarter panel. Now, in looking at this, I feel that we probably should put one more clamp right back here in this area. Now notice that these clamps have pads on the ends of them. They're not your typical welder type vice grips. They're vice grips that have pads on the end. And here again, if you use the welder type vice grips with the points on them, they will actually dent your fiberglass. And whenever you're using the clamps, make sure you get the ones with the pads on the end. Now we're going to come in through here. We're going to make sure that we've got the back side of the bonding strip up there. And we're just going to clamp this in place. And it just sucks that up a little more. Now we've got a small pair right back here on the back, so we've got this up good and tight. We check this area all out here. We find out we're all nice and flush. And the next step is to get busy and get a magic marker and to go around and to put lines from the quarter panel to the body and from the door, so that once we pull this panel off, getting ready to bond it onto the car, after we get the glue on here, we can just slap this panel right back on here, line up our alignment lines, and we know we're right in the ballpark. So we'll get busy and draw a few lines here. Now when we lined this up, we paid particular attention to our belt line here in the middle of the door. It's somewhat difficult to see on the quarter panel, and your fingers are really your eyes in this area. And you run your fingers over here and you find this hump or this raise, and then you go on to the door, and we're satisfied that we're right in the ballpark as far as how high and how low we are here. And so we're satisfied that we're right on the money right here. Now we're going to go along and draw lines here. And what we're even going to do, because we're going to work this area over, we're just going to mark where our vice grips are so we can put them back in relatively the same area that they are right now. Now we're going to get busy and we're going to pull this quarter panel off. We're going to get busy and mix up our bonding adhesive. We're going to put it into a cone that we can squeeze it out, And once we get all the adhesive on these areas, then we'll come back, clamp this thing down, and we've done it. We've used an epoxy adhesive. We've got this mixed up. We've got this in our cone here, and we're going to proceed to squeeze this out all along the areas that we're going to bond our new quarter panel to. As you can see, this is going to be a messy job. We're going to do this just like we did when we put it on originally. We're going to come to the back. We're going to get our little vice grips back here. Throw them on. We're going to move this up. We'll get these big ones up front here so we can put it in place. Here again, making sure we get underneath. Slide up our marks here till they line up on the door. Okay. Now we'll come down here. We'll put these on right up in here. They're a little bit loose. We need to tighten them up a tad. Clamp that on. We'll come down here and we'll get these on right down here in the bottom. We see we got to pull it back a little bit to get our gap. Okay. Come up here with these. Push this thing up. Need to tighten these up a little bit here. Okay, we can see how we're squeezing out up here. We'll come back here in the back. Run this last pair in from behind. Clamp this down up here. Check it all out. Our lines are all running. Looks like we need to adjust these up front. We need to pull this up in the front just a tad bit. Okay, that pretty much took care of those. Now what we're going to do, we're going to get our spreader that we had before, and we're going to take this adhesive that is squeezed out, and we're going to fill up this seam right here with this adhesive that's squeezed out. And this will really help us in the end when we go to finish this off. We won't, like I said before, we won't have to add so much. We won't have to grind so much off. And right now, we're going to let this sit overnight because we've got epoxy on here. We could put a heat lamp on this thing, an infrared heat lamp, probably for a half hour to an hour and cure this out. However, it's doubtful that most of you would have a heat lamp at home, so you're going to let this sit overnight. You're going to come back tomorrow. You're going to work out this upper area right here. You're going to work out your dogleg door gap down there. You'll finish gluing inside your splash shield, and you will have installed a brand new quarter panel on your car.